Laura and Elliot.
Hi, I'm Laura, and I am joining you today from Treaty 7 territory. The town I live in is Canmore. I'm sure most of you know it. It's just outside of Banff. And Elliot Fox is also here today, who will be introducing himself in a couple of minutes. The next slides. I'm the co-founder with Dr. Sean Marshall of the Resilience Institute. It used to be called the Rockies Institute. Some of you may know us from that, but we wisely changed our name. And today our presentation is on our partnership with the Alberta Environment and Parks, and it's called the BRACE. It's a BRACE program, building regional adaptation capacity and expertise. And our theme is Fire with Fire. So today's presentation, a little brief background on the Resilience Institute, on Fire with Fire, and then a community example. And then we're going to stop the presentation. There'll be lots of time for questions after. So we're a charitable organization, and our goal is to advance education and research on climate change and sustainability. We're focusing on adaptation right now. We partner to develop tangible processes for weaving scientific Indigenous knowledges and values in hopes of inspiring transformative approaches to climate adaptation. We collaborate with academia, NGOs, governments, industry, and currently we are quite active in rural and Indigenous communities in southern Alberta, also in the Wood Buffalo region and in South Africa. So, overview of Fire with Fire. The intent of this initiative is to mobilize the best available Indigenous and scientific knowledge of fire, to build regional adaptation capacity and expertise on fire management, and improve capabilities to evaluate the effectiveness of fire strategies based on the best available information. And the way we're doing this is we are building capacities in the Indigenous community partners through participatory video methods. And the activities are delivering workshops. So we delivered in-person workshops before COVID. Now we've been doing most of our work through remote means, but it's been working quite well. We compile best available knowledge, and we're using the participatory video method. So this is develop knowledge sharing opportunities as well. Once videos are done, it'll be nation to nation sharing plus sharing with policymakers in fire management, hopefully some of you. And we're also, as we're working through this, we learn as we go about how good practices in engagement between Indigenous and non-Indigenous partners. There are some great models out there, some criteria that's emerging, but we're also learning. And so we are capturing that and learning about respectful knowledge co-production. So that will also be available by the time this program has ended, and hopefully it'll be of use to some of your work. So I'm going to turn it over to Elliot now to introduce himself and talk about some of the meat and potatoes with this initiative, and then we'll have a short video from the pilot year to show you, and then we'll go into Q&A.
Okay, still on the go. Hi, my name is Elliot Fox. I just said hello in our Blackfoot language, and I introduced myself with my Blackfoot name, which translates to wolf collar. So it was given to me by our late elder Alan Prairie Chicken. I guess it's a really ancient name. Came from an old Kainai healer who wore a wolf pelt around his collar. So it's not the radio telemetry device. Anyways, yeah, so I'm working right now with the Resilience Institute as the Indigenous Communities Liaison. I'm going into year 2, and it's been a great experience. Just real quick on my background. I've worked for the past 27 years in natural resource conservation in Southwest Alberta with Parks Canada, Waterton, Alberta Fish and Wildlife, the Earthwatch Institute, and now the Resilience Institute as a fish, wildlife, forestry, rangeland, and climate adaptation technician. I also worked for the Kainai or Blood Tribe First Nation and the Piikani Nation as a land manager. And so I've been an independent consultant for going on to year 5. Anyway, thank you for welcoming us. So I'm going to continue with our presentation. And thank you, Laura, for introducing me. The partner communities with the Fire with Fire project are the Kainai First Nation or the Blood Tribe, Piikani First Nation, Samson Cree First Nation, and Deneta First Nation. Next slide. Why are we doing this work? Well, I guess we want to collaborate with those Indigenous communities in Alberta, looking at fire as one element. Our Indigenous communities, there's lots of elements we use in our ways of life, our ways of knowing, our world views, and just how we exist on a day-to-day basis. So fire was chosen as the topic. So we're looking at, the Deneta live in the boreal forest further north. So we're looking at all the, the different biomes in Alberta, with the communities we're working with. Samson Cree are just on the edge of the Aspen Parklands, and then there's a transition to the boreal forest. So they're in the Aspen Parkland. The Piikani moving south are just on the foothills in the shadow of the Rockies. And Kainai, they're on the prairie. But both the Piikani and the Kainai have timberlands in the foothills near the mountains. So we're trying to share our knowledge in a good way. We're building a shared understanding, respecting Indigenous and Western definitions. So it's meaningful work that has a good heart behind it. So it's been really great to be involved with this project. So right now, the 4 communities are working on participatory video. Because of the pandemic, that's obviously been delayed. So they're just slowly transitioning to receive the PV or participatory video training. So that's moving along a little slower than we had hoped. But some of the videos I've seen from 3 of the communities, man, there's some really great stuff. And they in the lower left picture here on the screen, that's one of our Kainai elders, Mary, First Rider. She's actually my neighbor. We live on the south end of the reserve, right across the highway from the town of Cardston. And Mary is one of our most well-respected elders. I believe she's early 90s. So, and she's still really sharp. So, and you can see in the other pictures, they're storyboarding and they're taking footage. So it really engages those technicians with the community to try to, draw out some of the information on how fire was important to all of those communities. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to quote Tiandra Brewsted. So she worked on as a technician on the PV training with Fire from the Kainai Nation. And she's now been elected to council. So that's really great for Deandra. But what she says here is First Nations are going to be the most affected by climate change. and yet they contribute the least to global carbon dioxide emissions. Where are their voices? Why aren't we listening to them? Why aren't we helping them? I think this participatory video project is a really good beginning. So in the pictures on the right, there's on the top there, that's Elder Beverly Hungry Wolf, and there's Mary again. But these two ladies have a lifetime of cultural knowledge. So it's really great that they can share their stories with us. So it's just always learning. So this is Siksikatsitapi, and what that means is that's the Blackfoot people. So that would include going from north to south, Canada, the US. There's Siksika east of Calgary, the Siksika Nation, and then between Pincher Creek and Fort Macleod and further south is Piikani Nation. And then further southeast between Fort Macleod and Cardston and south of Lethbridge is the Blood Reserve. So those are the three Blackfoot tribes of the Confederacy. And we got our reserve lands in Canada. And the fourth tribe is the Amskapipi-Gani, or the Blackfeet, and they're in northern Montana. So those are the four tribes. So that's Siksikatsitapi. We all believe the same worldview and practice the same customs. We speak the same language, although there are subtle differences when you speak to the other tribes in the language, but we can all understand that. So they did this video in year one, and it's called Cultural Chaos. It's about 10 minutes long, and it was produced by Alvin First Rider. He's in the lower right, and Alvin's continuing with our project again this year. Deandra Brewsted, who's sitting in the middle, she's now one of our counselors and a great ally to have with some of the work we're doing. And besides Deandra is Desiree Tailfeathers, and also Trent Croce, but all we can see is his elbow. But so those are the four, and they produced the Cultural Chaos video.
So we're going to play this video now, and then following the video, there will be Elliot and I live for Q&A. So thank you.
Yo, I heard about global warming when I was maybe 16 or 17. There was an old lady, her name was Dwatsky, and this uneducated old lady said, people think the earth is just floating around, but there's a cover. And she likened it to a womb covering. The news came on that a spaceship had landed on the moon. And that old lady said, oh, my poor children. She just about started crying. She said, everything's going to be different for you. They made a hole in the womb covering of the earth, and your weather's all going to change. Lo and behold, this old lady was right.
Every society, for instance, claims a territory. So we have Blackfoot territory. Okay. And within that territory, we develop a culture, okay, in relation with the sky, the animals, the plants, and so on.
As Blackfoot people, we follow the seasons, and we practice reciprocity and renewal ceremonies. We have a connection to the sky people and the ground people and the water people and Matapi, us as people, Kunatapi. And You can see changes in weather patterns. You can see changes in animal behavior, changes in the flight of the birds, and the water species are being affected by climate change. When we practice our renewal ceremonies, when we go out to harvest and gather, to practice our Aboriginal right to harvest and gather, whether it's medicinal plants, herbs, roots, or harvest the animals and birds that are part of our societies and bundles, it's getting harder and harder to find and locate certain plants, certain animals that are included within our bundles and our so that we can practice our ceremonies.
And in our traditions, the beaver bundle keeper looked out for the environment. So we had a sacred duty to Mother Earth through the beaver bundle. You know, we sang all the animal songs and honored them. The rocks, everything is honored in the beaver bundle. And it's, you know, it's heavily leaning towards our environmental safety. You know, the animals don't, you know, going up in the hills, but because of the fires, they're all coming down. And, you know, all the fires that they're having, I mean, just stop to think and how it's going to affect you.
When the climate changes over time, then that predictability, all the relational networks that you have with animals and so on, start to change, okay? So in other words, the eagles come a little bit earlier. Maybe they leave a little bit later. You know, the buffalo doesn't quite move as they used to be, okay? Well, then that starts to kind of bring about a little bit of cultural chaos, if I can put it that way. See, so that's what climate change to me is all about, taking in all this ecological balance, our relationships, and in the end, it affects our culture. When we hear the first thunder in the spring, and it used to be late spring, that's when all the bundle openings start to happen. Now we're hearing thunderstorms, and we're hearing the thunder and lightning in March. See? Well, that really throws off the timing that we're used to. See? And that's what I meant in the previous statement about bringing about cultural chaos. See? And, you know, sun dances, for instance, happen when the berries are just ripe, the Saskatoons are just ripe. Well, now the Saskatoons are taking a little bit longer. So in other words, hey, we may have to change the times of our sun dance ceremonies and so on, and what we pass on to the younger generations. But if things are changing, well, then the old knowledge starts to fall on the wayside because new things are developing. That's what climate change is to me.
Hey oh, hi oh, hey oh.
Thanks, Elliot and Laura. Awesome. Elliot, when's the last time I seen you?
I think it was in, holy man, it's been a while, Mike. I think it was in Polson at one of the Crown Managers Forums, like
Yeah.
4 years ago.
It's been too long, man, my friend. Hopefully one of these days we'll be able to get back together. Been doing a lot of climate change stuff. We're actually rewriting our plan based on the new models and new science that we're hearing. That's telling us that things are happening at a much faster pace than we thought that we planned for back in 2012. Good work you guys are doing. Thank you both, and thanks for sharing.
Yeah, I actually met Mike for the first time. We attended a climate change workshop in Missoula. There was about 5 of us from the Kainai Nation, and Mike facilitated that and showed us the CKST or CSKT plan that they had developed, and it was really awesome. So just hearing Mike now saying they're changing that, and that it's happening faster than we thought, just goes to tell you we got to always adapt. And you know, just a quick story. It was actually in late February a few weeks ago. I've never heard of this until late February, but we had this event and they called it a thunder snow. And it was just a really intense snowstorm, but there was rain and thunder. And I've never seen that. And you just heard Leroy say that thunder is coming earlier. So it's kind of disrupting the timing of some of our seasonal practices and our traditional Sundance. So anyway, I just thought I'd mention that. And yeah, Mike, you guys are doing great work, and all the other people that we've heard today in the whole Crown. So good job, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks. And you know what? I think I jumped the gun, Natalie. I didn't give time for Q&A. So do we want to do that first before we go into the breakout room?
Yeah, that would be great if people have questions.
Sarah, do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I'll make a question. I think that was really, I have a question. It was really interesting, and I'm curious about the moon story as well. I find that, you know, a very interesting story. I'd love to hear more about that. I'm curious as to what people think about how can communities work together to rapidly stop climate change rather than only adapting to it. So you know, how do we speed it up? How do we scale up solutions is my question.
To who?
I don't know. No idea.
I'll just share, Sarah, what we're doing. I guess, you know, basically trying to work on developing policies for the tribal council to pass. One of the first policies that I would like to have them pass is a no idle policy. I see a lot of our government vehicles or our tribal vehicles sitting outside idling when the staff people are going into their offices or whatever, especially in the wintertime. So that's just one of the things that we're doing here. The other thing is we developed a program called Eagles, and that's a youth program, Environmental Advocates for Global and Local Ecological Sustainability. That's a lot of words. But we're working with the youth from K to 12 and beyond to do recycling, to do community gardening, to do, I mean, they're just awesome. They're doing great. If anybody's interested in any of those programs, get a hold of me. anytime if you have any questions about what we're doing in our climate planning. So that csktclimate.org website, we're just putting that all together. There is a couple things in there on the Eagles program. I'm actually presenting about the youth stuff that we're doing at the National Tribal Leadership Climate Change Summit on the 1st, talking about the youth. So,
well, Michael, thank you. And I will say I'm supporting also with a group called Our Kids Climate that is engaging parents and grandparents and also youth in taking action on climate. And from somebody that started that when I was at university as well, I'd love to connect on that. So maybe we can touch base after this event. Fantastic.
Yeah, Mike, this is Elliot again. Sarah is part of the Resilience Institute, part of our team. So can you tell everybody, Sarah, where you're joining us from?
Yeah, so I'm joining from Amsterdam, and I've been working with the Resilience Institute team for about the last year or so. And what I find so inspiring about the work is building those bridges, isn't it? It's building connections between so many different groups and bringing in those stories of resilience, or the historical stories about nature that need to be weaved in. When I was a lot younger, I read about, you know, that the saying that you realize you cannot eat money. I think we know that there's such a short period of time to create systemic change. And yeah, it has to be policies, that has to be making clean energy is already cheaper than dirty energies. So how can communities work together to make much more rapid transition? And that also involves innovation and partnerships with universities, with children, with, you know, corporates or governments or whoever they are. I haven't really worked in that area before, but yeah, I'm rambling, so I'll stop talking now. But thank you, I'm really grateful.
Thanks, Sarah. And the pandemic actually has helped, right? If people have been watching the amount of carbon reduction because people were having to stay home. So that's kind of, I mean, there was like a huge reduction in carbon footprint all over the world because of it. So maybe people should stay home more. But this is great. I mean, you know, one of the good things too is these Zoom and these other kinds of meetings, we get to meet people. I mean, this is the largest fire farm that we've had since we started this. I was involved in an National Indigenous and Tribal Climate Conference a few months ago, and there was like 1,780 people from all over the world that attended that, which would have never happened if we did it in person.